Okay, so today we're going to go over JavaScript, and we're going to continue on with our semester-long project. I'm going to go along with my Intro to JS PowerPoint. So the first thing is take out your project that is Intro JS, our semester-long project where we separated our screens, and we're going to build upon that today. Okay, so I'm going to just go over some things in JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language that is part of any browser on the phone, computer, or some game consoles that can be run client-side that allows the user to interact with elements in the browser, such as divs, paragraphs, etc. Okay, it is an interpreted language. That means that it runs as you refresh the browser. So if I have an error in one of my scripts, I could simply right-click my document and I could go to my console and see all the errors I have. Okay, it will run even if I have errors, unlike compiled time languages. The only problem is that it is a little bit slower, so compiled languages are faster. JavaScript programs are a sequence of commands and statements. That means that it is not an object-oriented language. If you had something like Java, it is not like Java, as in everything has to be an object. This has the option of not being an object, which I think is powerful, because not everything needs to be an object. Objects have overhead, while sometimes they make your program slower and bloated, as where sometimes just having a functional language will make our program much faster. Okay, we're going to go over that a bunch of times for the rest of the semester. JavaScripts get linked at the end of the body, okay, except JavaScripts have a file extension of JS, and they get placed in the JS folder just for structure's sake. So the only JavaScript that we are not going to have at the end of our bodies are Jquery. So let's link a script, and we don't need anything yet. Let's just link it. Script type, which tells our browser, hey, we have a script. Its type is text, JS, JavaScript. Source is JS, Jquery.js. And it is not a self-closing tag, so make sure you close it, or otherwise we're going to have serious issues. And I linked my scripts.js at the bottom already. So just link your scripts.js, and we're going to use that in a little bit today to implement our own scripts. So if you're in your file or folder where we have our semester-long project, let's create a new folder. Let's call it JS. And let's go to our Notepad++, and let's save as. And I'm going to go to my JavaScript folder. I'm going to create a Jquery.js. Oops, I actually did that by accident. File, save as, Jquery.js. And let's make sure that I have my... Okay, so I still have it. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to save my new file as Jquery.js, and I'm going to replace what I had. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to open one more new tab and save as scripts.js. Okay, and when you reload your browser, where is it? Okay, we should be able to reload our browser, and you should see no errors in the console. So if you have anything mislinked, it'll be in red and said error file not found, and that'll give you a good indication that you had some sort of syntax error while trying to link your JavaScript. Okay, so in its most basic form, we can create a function to perform an action. So for instance, if I want to just say, hey, so since we're in our script .js, in our .js file, it expects functions, so it wants something like this. It says, hey, we're going to perform a function. We want its name to be hello. Okay? And inside the curly braces, we want to perform an action. We could do stuff. We could, insert HTML. We could alert something. So what we're going to do is alert, hello. Okay? So that says, hey, I have a function, which is a JavaScript reserved word. And then I have my name is hello, which is the name we give it, because we want to remember our function names. And these are inside these curly braces are the actions we're going to perform inside the curly braces, okay? And if we refresh our browser, we're going to see it absolutely does nothing because it's not linked, okay? But we can link it directly to some elements. So we have our sign up button, we have li class buttons, div ID login button. So we could attach a event to it, an on-click event that says, hey, when I click this, I want to perform the function of hello, and it will perform any action that is inside these curly braces. So if I just want to refresh and click, it will perform the action of hello. When I click on it, will perform hello. So JavaScript has a bunch of predefined events that are able to happen, and it will trigger whatever script you have attached to that element. Okay, so we're going to go over that in depth throughout the rest of the semester. Okay, so we have our functions. These parentheses can pass parameters. We're able to pass something. So if instead of just saying I want to alert hello, okay, I could have a string parameter, and I could alert the string. That means when I go over here and I want to on-click hello, I have to pass a parameter. I have to say I want you to click this is the button, okay? And I am able to dynamically tell the function what I want it to say when it is clicked. Ooh, and I'm supposed to single quotes. Okay. Why do I want parameters? Because I want on my second div or my second button, I want to on-click, and I want to fire the hello function, but I want to fire this is not the button. So I want my script to alert two separate strings depending on which button I press. So that's why we pass parameters. Okay? So we could dynamically tell JavaScript different things. So inside these braces, we could tell the browser to do pretty much a unlimited amount of commands. Obviously, to keep it, somewhat manageable, I wouldn't do too many in between, but technically speaking, you're able to perform as many commands as you want in between the curly braces, okay? So JavaScript, every command must end with a semicolon, or you will have a syntax error and nothing will work. So we have variables. Variables is great. So variables allow us to set aside a placeholder in memory. Okay, so we assign variables. Now, why would we assign variables? So we saw how we pass parameters. Let's get rid of that. So we have a variable, and to define a variable, we just write the word var. Var my time equals new date. And hold on 1 second. Okay, so what that says is this is actually a JavaScript object, which is a date object. Okay, so I'm going to alert my time, and let's bring back our on click equals hello. Okay, and and I must have a syntax error somewhere. Oops, there's this. Okay. Okay, so and it's gonna alert a date object. Okay, so we know that in our variable myTime that we are going to want the date timestamp from JavaScript. Okay, so it's saying, hey, var myTime equals the new date, whatever it is. We are not going to know what the date and time is because we have millions of people using our application. The time is always going to be different, and you can't physically be there to say, hey, it's 7:35 in the morning. But we know that we want the time, so this will, in our memory, say whenever we call the variable of myTime, we know that it's going to give us or spit out the time that it is at that moment in time for whatever reason that we may need it. Okay, just like we have anything else. So we don't know what the actual value is going to be, but we know what we want it to be. Like we know that we want the time, but we don't know the actual time. So we're going to set a placeholder in memory and say, hey, anytime that I call you, give me the time. Because I need the time. Yeah, I don't know it. Okay? So things that are changing. These are not static. Like we wouldn't want to put, var number equals 3 because we know that number is always 3. We can do this, but this is static. Okay, so it's never changing, but the date is always changing, but we know that it's always going to return some sort of date. Okay, and we can make static numbers or strings variables, which is not a bad idea either. Okay, but those are what variables are used for at its very easiest form. Okay, so libraries are a collection of easy-to-use functions and methods making JavaScript faster, eliminating the need to manually create functions. Good. So we have a bunch of reusable code that we don't have to do every time we make an app. I have tons of libraries that I just reuse code because sometimes I would spend hours, if not more, redoing the same stuff that I don't want to. I use a great library. It's called Jquery. It is very, very good. So let's go to jquery.com. Okay. And we're going to go to this big orange button that says download jQuery. And then we're going to want download compressed production. That means that it's much smaller, so it loads faster than the uncompressed version. So we don't want that. We want the compressed version. Okay, so let's go back to our, we should go to our jQuery.js and just paste it on and save it. Now our jQuery should be loaded. Okay, a good way to see if our jQuery is loaded is just write a document.ready function, which says, hey, when my body loads, okay, when the document is ready, any events fire. Okay, so this is an actual event. Okay, the document ready function, that means when, as soon as the document loads, do something. So we're going to alert we are ready. Okay, and this will tell us whether or not our jQuery is linked just by refreshing the page, because it will fire. Okay, it will fire as soon as our document is ready. Okay, so it says we are ready, and my JavaScript is now linked correctly. Okay, so let's get rid of our onClick and hello. Okay. Oops. Let's go to our PowerPoint. Okay, so jQuery is pretty easy. It has a wonderful thing called CSS selectors. Okay, so as you can see here, it says one onClick function. That means instead of having to inline attach a an event or a function to our elements, which I think is very sloppy, we are able just to put them here. So it says, let's see what our, we have a div class of button. So we have div ID login button. Oops. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to my scripts. I'm going to say, and this $ is just a jQuery function, and in quotes, I have my login button. So this tells me, or jQuery, that we have an ID of login button that we're going to attach some sort of event on, which says when we click, perform this function. Okay. And we could perform any function. We can perform any actions. Any actions can be performed here, okay? We can actually call our hello function. Just like that. Okay, so now, when I refresh this HTML page, I have a click function attached to this div, okay? On click, perform the function hello. Or we could just have done it inline. But I prefer to keep everything separate because it gets sloppy, and then I could use the hello function again, okay? Okay, so now we're able to perform any sort of actions between the two, or between login button when we click on it. Okay, so if I replace this with, let's say we have li class buttons. Okay, so I can just say class buttons on click function. I am able to target any button when clicked. Okay. Okay, and anything that has the class of buttons now has an event attached to them. So jQuery is very powerful in this way. Okay, so we have our CSS target, our on action function. So it says, hey, whatever, ID, element, or class, when this happens, this is our CSS target. Then it says on action function. This is when we have some sort of action. So we have a bunch of actions. We have our touch start, touch move, touch end, click. Okay. We have key down, key press, key up, focus, and blur. There are tons. But let's go over a few. So we have our click, which we went over. Then we have touch move and touch end, which don't work in the browser. Okay. But we're able to. And let's do that. Let's do touch start, and we're going to do a touch end function. And this actually pertains to our application. Okay, so when we make an app, we want some sort of feedback when we touch, press, and touch end these buttons. Why? Because otherwise the app looks unresponsive. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're gonna give our buttons a secondary class to make them look like they're highlighted. Okay, so we're actually gonna do this. We're gonna perform this, and I'm gonna tell you what this is in 1 second. Add class touched, and we're gonna put it down here as well. This dot remove class touched. Okay, so what this is the element that initiates the function. What does that mean? I have two buttons right here, right? I have two buttons, login and sign out. Both of them that have, that have a class of buttons. Okay, so two elements with the class of buttons. When I touch down with login will be the initiator of the event. Excuse me. Excuse me again. Okay, that means that when I press down login, my dot buttons on touch start function is now triggered, but login is the triggerer of the function, is the initiator. So that would be this, okay? Meaning that I only want login button to have the class of touch because it's going to have some sort of highlighted state. If I put dot buttons dot add class touched, okay, then that means when I touch down on this login button, both sign up and login will have a highlighted state, and we don't want that. Okay, so I only want to target the button that is gonna emit that event for me. Okay, so this does that. This only targets the element that is initiating or starting the event, and the more you practice it, the more you'll see what it actually does if you're confused, because JavaScript, CSS, HTML, you can only understand through repetition. I can only tell you, this is what it does, but you need to do it a bunch of times before it actually hits you. Okay, so obviously touch end and touch start aren't by default browser functions because they're made for phones, but we could use our emulation. There's an emulation tab at the bottom. Let's emulate an iPhone 5, and for some reason our document's not coming out right, and I have to figure out why, but it should. It should be to the size of the phone, but I will fix that for next time. Okay, but just to emulate touch start and touch end events, and okay, and if you see, if you could see my browser, when I touch the button, it highlights. So I'm gonna actually add something in our CSS so we could see visually what's happening. So let's go to our CSS, and if you were paying attention throughout the semester, you'll know that since CSS is cascading, I need my touched class to be at the bottom after buttons, because otherwise our background color that we are going to apply won't override buttons, so it has to appear after buttons in our CSS file. So let's have a background color of let's try CCC. Okay, and that should be like a grayish color. Okay, so I'm going to just add that, and we're going to refresh our browser. And when you touch down, let me zoom in. Actually, let me see something. Okay, actually this will fix it. So if we go to our HTML, we're just going to put in a simple meta tag which tells our browser to read it as a phone app instead of a website. So we're going to just add the tag right under our HTML tag. Let's add meta name equals viewport, content width equals device width, comma initial scale equals 1, comma maximum dash scale equals 1, and user scalable equals no. You can just stop the video as needed to type that in. What that does is it brings since we have devices with high pixel ratios, what it does is it scales the content correctly, so it will fit perfectly within our iPhone or whatever app we're going to use. So if you don't have this, when you right click inspect element and make sure this little blue tab here is highlighted, okay, because otherwise the tab goes away, so you want to highlight it, and at the bottom you should see emulation, and you're going to look for iPhone 5 or whatever you want, and then just click emulate, and then it will emulate, and then you might have to refresh the browser, but then you will have an iPhone 5, and you will have touch start, touch end events, and all other cool events, okay? So, since we're pretty good here, now, you should see, when you touch start, it adds the class of touched, which has a different background color, okay? And when we release it, okay, our touch feedback goes away. Okay, so I actually made a really well, just for now, what we're gonna do is this. So let's add a click event for our login button. And it is login button. So we have login button on click function. We are gonna hide screen 1. So let's do div ID main page, and we are gonna, next time we are gonna go over transitions and animations, and we're gonna actually animate between the two. So we can do main. Actually, you know what? Let's just add. I have made a really cool JavaScript library. Where is it? Hold on one second. Okay, so I've actually attached a my CSS animation library. Okay, that you guys are welcome to use with documentation of how it works, why it works, and how to use it, so you can make your own. Okay, and these docs will definitely help you make your own libraries, or make CSS3 animations to translate through screens. If not, at least you are able to translate through the screens, okay? But I have attached it as CSS animation library, so let's use it, okay? So I have some cool stuff. We're able to do some cool stuff. So what we're going to do is I have transitions.js and transitions.css. So let's go to our index.html file, and let's link them both. Link relevance equals style sheet, type, text, CSS, href equals CSS, or actually it's, yeah, CSS, transitions.css, okay, and it's self-closing. And then we have our script, and let's put it under Jquery, not that we need it, but just for sake. Script type equals text JavaScript source, and it's in our CSS folder, or I have it there, but you are welcome to move it. Transitions.js, and let's close it. Okay, so let's make sure that it's linked correctly. So I'm going to refresh my browser, and my console shows no errors. That means everything is there. Okay, so I have things that we are able to fade and slide, and I really suggest that you go over all the things that it can do, because it's pretty cool. So I'm going to fade between the two screens, okay? I have our main page. Let's see, we have div ID, we have main page. So I'm going to do fade, which will be, we are going to fade in add task. And we are going to fade out main screen. Okay, and when I click, oh, and I have a, hold on one second.